Hi everyone, Elizabeth here, and I want to talk to you about how my generalized anxiety disorder is actually my superpower. Now, imagine you cannot breathe. Your peripherals fade and your vision narrows. In a state of panic, you feel a weight crushing your rib cage. With every exhale, your lungs compress tighter, making it harder to take in air. Everything is the worst case scenario, yet your rational brain knows that it is not in danger. As someone with a generalized anxiety disorder, this feeling of being on the brink of death is actually a normal occurrence. People living with a mental disorder such as myself live in a constant state of fear and panic. Problems from their past, present, and future are constantly on their mind. In fact, my mind is in a constant cycle of being alert because my nervous system is overactive. My mind may be working, but my body, it grows weak and insists I'm in danger. Anxiety feels as if every problem in life is being experienced at once. And this can definitely place a weight on one's soul. But I have learned that doesn't need to be the circumstance. I was diagnosed with GAD, better known as generalized anxiety disorder. And I was diagnosed just when I was a sophomore in high school. At this point in my life, I felt anxiety was my kryptonite. I lost interest in the things I loved. I isolated myself from my friends and my family. I was constantly fatigued, yet restless, and I was unable to sleep at night with bursts of insomnia. Nights were always the worst time for my anxiety as well. I was kept awake at night by my own tears, and I would shove my face into my pillow and quietly cry in hopes that I wouldn't wake my parents up. For what would I tell them? I have no reason to cry. In fact, without sobbing, tears were just rolling down my face. I felt broken inside, like a character that needed to be deleted out of the story. Thankfully, for me, my mother noticed my peculiar behavior, and she insisted that I see a doctor. I was told what I was experiencing was anxiety and depression, and I don't know how it was possible that anxiety could make me feel as if I'm fading from this world, but it did. I was prescribed medication because of the severity of my behavior. For some people, such as myself, medication is a necessity, and that is okay. In fact, the medication helped me to make the realization that my mentality was negative. And this was a big moment for me in realizing just how I can live with the anxiety I was diagnosed with. The medication was alright, but much of my distress was caused by my imperfect thinking patterns, my cognitive distortions, such as my all or nothing thinking or my catastrophizing. The problem with our current view of society and anxiety is that we often forget where it comes from. According to numerous studies done, anxiety was once an adaptive response. The imbalanced emotion put our bodies in high alert, allowing early humans to sense danger. Many of the habits people with anxiety express can actually be good qualities if channeled in the right way. More recently, scientists have been exploring the effects of anxiety, and they've discovered that it comes with a unique set of superpowers. Like someone with unique abilities, whether it be a superhero or a person with a so-called disorder, it takes time to first understand and then train your powers. So, what superpowers do I possess because of my anxiety disorder? There are many powerful traits that accompany my own personal disorder. A heightened sense of perception is one of the most common traits with all anxiety disorders, and this trait, it empowers those individuals to harness levels of perception that most others cannot. I personally have a life-saving instinct. And as we know in earlier times, anxiety would serve as a way to protect our ancestors from harm or even death. Recent studies prove that people with anxiety are actually better reacting to danger than people without anxiety. This is actually because the anxious brain is able to process threats more efficiently. A study done at the Institute of Psychiatry revealed that people with anxiety, they actually do avoid fatal accidents more often than others. Now moving on to my next superpower, I actually have a sixth sense. That's right. People gifted with anxiety, they can predict the future. French scientists have discovered that people with anxiety that possess a unique life-saving sixth sense. Their sixth sense is active, and it helps them both to predict and avoid potential tragedies. These scientists found that some regions in these anxious brains have the ability to detect threats in just 200 milliseconds. This sixth sense gives the ability to react appropriately in cases of social threats in the environment. Therefore, I can potentially save other people's lives as well. Now, it has been proven that people with anxiety have an increased IQ. Researchers at SUNY Downstate Medical Center in New York, they verify that anxiety gives an individual a higher IQ. In this study, people with a general anxiety disorder were tested for IQ, and researchers found that anxiety correlated positively with intelligence. A person with an anxious mind is always overanalyzing environments and situations. Their brains are high octane, and they're constantly processing mass volumes of information. A higher intelligence is necessary in order to process this much. Therefore, those who have high levels of anxiety exhibit a higher IQ. Moving on to my next superpower, I have an increased empathetic ability. Psychologists at the University of Haifa in Israel can confirm that's true. According to their research, anxious people exhibited elevated empathetic tendencies. This also disclosed that these anxious individuals can accurately feel other people's emotions. Empathy can act as both a superpower and a curse, depending upon the own empath. Either way, an anxious person can read your emotions like no one else can. Now, moving on to a similar superpower, people with anxiety can read people's minds, and they have the ability to recognize other people's energies. Being empathetic, negative energies are easy to detect, and therefore, like people as myself, we're unable to surround ourselves with negative people for too long. Being extremely sensitive to these energies, I'm actually able to get to know another person's mind and the way that they think. In this way, I can create a conclusion of the way they process their thoughts and what they could potentially be thinking. Now, I also have an improved sense of memory. People with anxiety can think for long durations of time, so it's easy for them to remember things. Unlike normal human beings, they tend to see the situation from lots of points of view. These perspectives help us think differently, and our memory helps them think past things with present situations. With time, imagination continues to expand too, as well as the memory. Now, speaking of imagination, anxiety and creativity actually go hand in hand. T.S. Eliot was the one who gave us the sentiment that anxiety is the handmaiden of creativity. Anxious people have racing minds. Therefore, they have the gift of being able to endlessly create and imagine. An American psychologist and writer, stated that it seems that the key to creative cognition is to open up the floodgates and let as much information out as possible. Because you never know. Sometimes the most bizarre associations can turn into the most productively creative ideas. So if you're creative, embrace the creative gift you've been given and celebrate your uniqueness. Now, what you would think a generalized anxiety disorder would cause is a lack of energy. That is far from the case, actually. The reality is that people with anxiety have an increased level of energy. Our minds never stop thinking, and our bodies never stop moving. There's a constant rush of energy throughout the day, and we can't sit still, even into the night. I even have bits of insomnia at night, but that's alright because that's when I find I'm most creative. Now, I do have these extra bursts of energy, and it's always advised to create this energy and channel it into something productive, which can emphasize the positive benefits. Now, one of my more important superpowers that I have is my resilience. Like most people with some type of disadvantage, it takes the ability to fall and to get back up. Every time we're beat up, we keep coming back stronger than before. The same is true for me and the other people with the same type of superpowers. No matter the scenario, you keep getting back up, and that's what makes you super. So while there are many things with anxiety and people that need to cope with, one thing for certain is that anxiety comes with a set of gifts that others don't usually possess. Understanding all these traits is the first step toward living both happily and healthily with anxiety. Anxiety is not a disorder. It's my superpower.